First of all, it's a very large screen, I must say. So it's really impressive to see your presentation at this size. So I think the other operators or presenters should have that feeling as well. Thanks for asking the question. How do we look at being a good neighbor? So I will tell shortly about the noise policy we have, some background about for NS. And also some practical examples, for example, for parking noise, which is still a big issue for us, and also within UIC. So present and future actions we are foreseen, and then we have some time together with James for questions and discussions. As said, you've shown what is our goal: to operate trains on time, etc., at low cost. But at the same time being a good neighbor. So complaints are not good for the operator because it's bad publicity, but also you don't want that. You want to be a good neighbor. For us, 3 items are important. So it's pass-by noise, starting noise, and parking noise of trains. And how do we make that better? To have additional, above the TSI, additional procurement specifications on noise. TSI is, in my opinion, in my view, easy on TSI limit values, easy to reach for a manufacturer. For starting is always on the limit, but for parking or stationary noise and pass-by noise, it's not so difficult to reach. So we have set in our requirements stricter limits for example, for pass-by noise, for commuter trains, so we call them sprinters, short distance, lots of stops. That time the TSI was asking for, it's now 80 decibels, but at that time it was 81. We asked for 76 decibel as a maximum limit, and the train complied to it. Before we had a train which reached 73 decibels, so we thought, well, we can ask in the next procurement, we can set stricter limits. So we reduce it, but give them a little bit space compared to the present train. So from 73, we raised it up to 76 decibel. For starting noise, we also had the experience that it, in the TSI was at 80 decibels, but we have had the experience that lower values were easily possible, so we put it on 75 decibels, which was also reached. For the commuter trains, the lower value, one of the reasons was they had smaller wheels, Jacobs bogies, which all has the benefit for, and I think in the end the train had some simple wheel dampers. I think it's a steel ring, so not very sophisticated, but that made it for the provider easy to reach. I don't know, easy, but they reached it, let's say it like that way. For parking noise, stationary noise, you have this TSI value, which asks for 65 decibels for a stationary train, which is the average on a certain condition of all the noise sources. And what I have seen in all projects, it's very easy for the supplier to reach that limit. So we have reduced it a little bit to 62, which is still not so difficult to reach. In addition to that, we have set limits on single sources. When you really a parked train, presentation from Alstom already showed that every operator has different limits and different operating modes. So we defined the operating modes, and for that we put limits on single noise sources. But that's only for NS, and we wanted to make that for a larger group. A larger European operators group, because we are not the only ones struggling with parking noise. So together with Deutsche Bahn, SNCF and SBB, we set up the Eurospec parking noise group. It's behind the picture at the moment. I think it was in 2017, 2019, where we first tried to understand the parking modes for each company, and as explained by Alstom, they were not the same. They differ from each other. So you have the dose mode or the energy saving mode was different depending on the different partners. In the end, we found a solution measure the maximum value when your, for example, HVAC is running at highest level, and at the energy saving mode, the lowest level, and for both values, we put limits. So we did a lot of comparison of noise emission values of different trains under different conditions, and we managed to set some limits. It's not perfect, the Eurospec, but it gives guidance. It's used by different operators, and we will start a second an update of the parking noise, and we want to chat at least with Unife to improve the Eurospec parking noise. Well, you can find it. It's free. You can find it on eurospec.eu/parking noise. And Eurospec, that's a group of operators who defines requirements for issues where there is no international standardization or EN standards, which is used every time when you write specifications for buying new trains. Yeah, to make it all together, it's easier for the suppliers because they have one requirement. And as Awesome said, there is more requirements. Then you have already one requirement for at least 6 operators. So to harmonize a little bit more. Yeah, why is parking noise so important? Well, it's said many times. Just an example, this is a railway yard at Amsterdam. You see a lot of parked trains over here. Here live citizens nearby. There are some student houses. Yeah, you don't want these trains parked here to annoy the people living over there. There's a lot of complaints from HVAC, from compressors, from auxiliary converters, from moving trains. So it's not only complaints, which is an issue for us, but also ProRail has to comply to environmental laws, legislation. And at one point, it is, yeah, there's still space to park trains, but because of noise, you cannot park your train anymore. So you have to move to another location. So sometimes you get empty trains running from one side to the other because it's full. So you want to, yeah, you don't want that. You want to reduce the noise. There on the top right, you see these trains are really close to its end track where the train waits, let's say 15 minutes and then continues its journey. But it's very close. It complies to the legislation, this train, but still a lot of complaints. So we are working on improvement of, which is go on the next slide. On the HVAC, the train it did comply to the specifications we have set at the beginning, but it was the HVAC was quite simple. It had a condenser fan which can run only at 1 speed. So many complaints. You see there, right? It's very close. This is not the same train, but there was the train parked there, a lot of noise, which we don't want. So we have, yeah, together with the sub-supplier, we looked for solutions, and we have at least make 2 speeds, so a low speed, high speed, and it was really helpful. It reduced the noise with 9 decibels. It was, yeah, so it's 2 years ago, but we were now implementing it. It will take time to change all these HVACs, so it will take 1 or 2 years, I don't know exactly. But in the end, all the trains are much more silent. Another issue with this train was the compressor. Because of technical issues, every hour it had to run for 3 minutes to make sure the blow off, to make sure that it keeps in good condition. And you can imagine that's, well, not very nice if it's standing next to your house or at blowing off every hour, 3 minutes. A lot of complaints. And now we add a damper which reduced the noise with 6 decibels. So there are solutions. When you talk to the sub-supplier, you have the conversations to improve the noise. Another example, I think you all know when you're standing next to a train and suddenly it blows off a lot of air, which makes a lot of noise. It's very short, very quickly rise, and you can see those 3 pipes. One of them, a lot of air is blown off, and well, also our workers. It's more than 100 decibel at 7.5 meters back then. they complained about it. So it's also about regulations for workers. It was not good. So together with a supplier, we discussed this, and they improved the solution. The air is now blown off in between. It's a double floor. It's in between. Outside, it's really reduced from up to 64 decibels instead of 100, because it's inside. And inside, it also complied to the interior noise in the cabin. So it was a good solution, and hopefully, maybe the supplier can use it also in other projects to learn from one project, put it into another project. So that were quite some practical examples how we solved issues with parked trains, how we improved the pass-by noise. And as said, we had this Eurospec parking noise. But it was also told this morning, the ISO 3095 will be updated, which includes now also parking noise, of noise from parked trains. And we have to align the different requirements. And perhaps, as said, we will also discuss with Unife. We did it before, but we will discuss again, what are your concerns with that? How can we improve it? So we want to do it. We will start next month with the update, and hopefully in a year, 1.5, you can find a new version on eurospec.eu which you can use when procure new trains. And then a UIC, of course. We have started this year a working group, or this year maybe also before, but in that group, Martijn Riesman from Freebatrek will present the UIC report, Management of Parked and Stationary Trains, which has gathered all the experiences given so far, but I will not tell about, otherwise Martijn has nothing to tell. But it's a very nice, it gives a good overview of what the current status is, and also what still has to be done, because there's still a lot to do. The last year we also had, I think it was last year or June 2022, yeah, it was June, we had a ID-ton. A little bit what we did this morning, so small groups discussing, in this case, parking noise. And the idea from that was that the communication with suppliers, so the big suppliers like Awesome Cuff, Togo, but also the sub-suppliers like Merak, Liebherr, Knorr, we need to discuss with them as well. What are your improvements? What are your innovations? What do we don't know as operator? Only then we can put that in our requirements. So that's, we will hopefully, I think, it's planned for 2023 at least. Then we have Europe's Rail. That's a follow-up of Shift to Rail, and there are two subjects on noise, squeal noise. So I have to talk to University of Vienna, where you're there, maybe you can provide some input for that squeal noise, but also tonality. So tonality of, and especially the perception of tonality. So on perception are two subjects, one on tonality and one, Fabrice, it's on high-speed noise, high-speed train noise. For high-speed trains. So it's not only on the value, but also how do people, because tonality, you can measure it, you can, there's a standardization, you see peaks between two in a certain bandwidth, but how do people perceive it? From measurement, it's tonality, but in reality, maybe it's not an issue, or the other way around, you don't measure it, but it's an issue. So that's how to cope with that. And last but not least, the TSI noise is updated. Hopefully it will be published this year. There's one improvement for freight trains. Well, I'm a railway operator, so I'm not very interested in freight trains, but there's a lot of the quieter routes, and of course that works very well. But there is no update on parked trains limits, so noise limits. So together with the UIC, maybe the SER and the suppliers, hopefully we can include some parking noise limit values for single sources. So, but that's we need to gather for that a lot of data, harmonized measurement method. So there's a big amount of work to do. But if we can reach that, we don't need Eurospec, we don't need VDVAL, we can use TSI, and that is harmonized over for whole Europe then. So that's that's a dream. I hope we can finish this the next TSI update. So it will be 27 something, 28 maybe. And so this is for me the overview up to now. And we have some questions and discussion time, I think.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much, Martijn.
Okay.